Greg Gard and the Wisconsin Badgers basketball team needs a win. They need it pretty badly. After 4 straight losses, the Badgers welcome the Ohio State Buckeyes to the Kohl Center, a Buckeyes team that is eerily similar to this Wisconsin Badgers team. And that's not something I would have said 2 weeks ago, but it's something I'm saying today. And so we got to talk about what brought this similarity to light here on the Scotty Six Pack podcast. And good morning. Thank you for enjoying it with a six pack. The Scotty Six Pack, the only podcast talking all things Wisconsin sports at you 6 days a week. I am your host, Kedrick Stumbris, and you can follow me on the website formerly known as Twitter at Kedrick Stumbris, and follow the podcast at Scotty Six Pack for the latest updates in Wisconsin sports. While you are here listening on your podcast platform of choice, please leave a kind review, 5 stars, nice comments, hit the bell so you get notified as soon as we put episodes live, including on YouTube, youtube.com/@Scotty6Pack, where you should smash the subscribe button, smash that like button, and come and hang out in the comments. Get the conversation going. Really, really, really does help us make better content. Helps us know what you're looking for. And like I said, today we're talking about Wisconsin, Ohio State, this big time Big Ten matchup at the Kohl Center tonight. It is on Peacock at 8 p.m. But if you are not a Peacock subscriber, if you would like to not become a Peacock subscriber, you can follow me on the website formerly known as Twitter at Kedrick Stumbris. I will be covering the game on the beat for Badger Notes. You can always read our up-to-the-minute game coverage at badgernotes.com. You can find all of my work on the site linked in the podcast description, where we have a written version of our pregame preview that I put out yesterday for you to go ahead and go read. A little bit of different content than we'll cover here, but some of the same stuff, but we'll go even more in depth here on this episode and have new tidbits throughout the day on the site and get into something that we're waiting on a little bit of breaking news that we might get around game time that will go live on the site. So stay tuned there and follow me at Kedrick Stumbris for the latest. But before we get to the potential breaking news before the game starts, I just want to get into a little bit of what makes these teams so weirdly similar. Because Ohio State's not having a fantastic season. They're a 14-10 team. That's a 2-game difference from Wisconsin now, and Wisconsin is 16-8, and Wisconsin was far from 16-8 before Ohio State won on Saturday against Maryland in double overtime. Ohio State had only won 1 game since January 4th. It had been a long time. It had been a tough, Big Ten slate so far for Ohio State altogether. An Ohio State team that is much better on offense than it is on defense. A team that plays at a quite slow pace. A team that doesn't generate a ton of turnovers, although Ohio State generates far fewer turnovers through its defense than it does, than Wisconsin does, on the other hand. Team that takes care of the ball pretty well on offense. All things considered, they rank very similarly in turnover percentage. A team that doesn't have the best perimeter defense, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But these two teams are pretty dang similar. Not super deep, relatively experienced, but you start lining up all these metrics and you see a lot of things that are really similar. And based on the fact that Wisconsin has lost 4 straight games, you see a lot of similarities in this Ohio State team to teams that have beaten Wisconsin lately, because teams have beaten Wisconsin in all kinds of ways. Rutgers kind of beat Wisconsin up and down the floor on Saturday. So how does Wisconsin beat this team? What are the key matchups? Let's get into it here. And I think it starts with which team can be the least bad on 3-point defense, because neither one of these teams have an exceptional 3-point defense by any means. Both have been pretty poor over the course of this season. But right now, One of them is trending in the wrong direction. And we'll get into that in just a second, because this season, Wisconsin's 3-point defense by 3-point shot percentage allowed ranks 326th in the country. Obviously not great. Badgers let Rutgers, as we talked about on this podcast, shoot better than twice as good as their season average from deep. Ohio State, on the other hand, ranks 309th in the country in 3-point defense by shot percentage allowed. Now, of course, that means that Wisconsin's defense has been a little bit worse, but over the course of the last, handful of games, it's been Ohio State whose 3-point defense has really, really been poor. Think about the Purdue game for Wisconsin. Well, Wisconsin didn't let Purdue really make any threes, despite their attempts there. In the last, since Wisconsin and Ohio State met on January 10th in Columbus, Wisconsin in that game made just under 32% of its shots from beyond the arc in that game. Since then, Ohio State have let opponents make 46% of their 3-point shot attempts. Ohio State's moving in the wrong direction on this one. Wisconsin has been in a bit of a slump in 3-point shooting on their own, right? Max Klesmit has come down from his heater. AJ Storr is 1 of 13 in the last 3 games combined from 3. Not a very excellent 3-point shooting stretch for him by any means. Chucky Hepburn is having his worst season shooting from 3 in his career. Could this be a get-right game for the Badgers? Shooting from deep. They're going to need it. They're going to need it, because if they cannot slow down this Ohio State, 3-point shooting effort, if Wisconsin's 3-point defense can't step up to the task here, Wisconsin is going to need to, go punch for punch potentially with Ohio State from deep to keep up. And Ohio State has a really tough backcourt to do it with. And that starts with Jamison Battle, the transfer in from Minnesota, which Wisconsin knows well. Jamison Battle, who shot very well against Ohio, or against Wisconsin the first time they met. He made 4 of 5 of his 3-point attempts. Ohio State in that game made 6 of 18. So for a perfect, 33.3% in that game. Ohio State's guards lead the charge, and no, not all of them shoot the 3 super well. Jamison Battle is by far the best. He's one of the best 3-point shooters in the country, quite frankly. But Ohio State is led by some other pretty excellent guards. And of course, it kind of starts with Bruce Thornton, their point guard. He distributes the ball well. He is Ohio State's leading scorer. Arguably, though, I would say the most dangerous player on Ohio State's roster from an offensive production standpoint is actually Roddy Gale Jr., the sophomore, kind of combo guard, wing player, plays a role very similar to AJ Storr. I would expect Roddy Gale Jr. and AJ Storr to be going head to head on offense and defense in this game due to their respective levels of athleticism and burst that they are able to give on the floor, because Roddy Gale Jr. can really come out and score. He's not a phenomenal 3-point shooter by any means, but he knows how to get to the hoop. He can drive the lane, and is one of the best players in the country at drawing fouls, at getting to the free throw line, and finishing there. It is very, very, very impressive, everything Roddy Gale Jr. can do. And he wasn't really the full-formed player that he has become this season the last time Wisconsin and Ohio State met. This is a different level of Roddy Gale Jr., I think, since January 10th. And on January 10th, Wisconsin kind of held Roddy Gale Jr. in check. Only let him get 2 shots, two shots at the free throw line. Only had 9 points. 9 points on 13 field goal attempts. It was a middling performance, and it's something that Wisconsin is going to need to stop, or at least limit again in this one, in order to keep up with Ohio State. Wisconsin's defense is going to be challenged in this one. We've talked multiple times how against Michigan, Wisconsin was giving up dribble penetration too often. Against Rutgers, Wisconsin was giving up dribble penetration too often. Roddy Gale is kind of the textbook Like this is kind of the scout team player I would want to be playing against if I were trying to prepare my team to defend dribble penetration. And that's a scary thing for this Wisconsin Badgers team right now. It might be something Wisconsin can't, live up to given the recent levels of success that other teams have had playing similar styles against the Badgers of late. That brings me to another analog player in the front court, which could cause problems for Wisconsin, and that is Felix Akpara, who is among the best shot blockers in the country. Wisconsin, of course, just coming off of that game against Clifford Amore in Rutgers, who is, I mean, if not definitely the best shot blocker in the country, certainly arguably the best shot blocker in the country. But Felix Akpara is, by KenPom, he has the 15th highest block percentage in the entire country. He is a rebounding monster. He is the sophomore starting center for the Buckeyes and could be a real problem considering the way Wisconsin had issues navigating around Cliff Amore against Rutgers. And part of that, like we said in the post-game reaction podcast to the loss at Rutgers, was sometimes those are just a big guy's going to make plays. A big athletic center who's known to block shots is going to block some shots. And that's how Cliff Amore blocked the Badgers 8 times. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not worried that a Felix Akpara could do the same exact thing to Wisconsin here for Ohio State. It is something absolutely concerning given the fact that Steve McCrowell is not really a rim protector. He isn't always going to go up incredibly strongly. I was having a conversation with Ryan Herring's friend of the show of Locked On Badgers just the other day, and we were kind of debating about AJ Storr, and Ryan had said, I wish that he would just go more strongly to the hoop at times. Well, this is a game where if you're going to go at the hoop, you got to go strong because of what Felix Akpara can do to you. He certainly doesn't come with the experience and the accolades of a Cliff Amore by any means, who is a senior, well-established, all Big Ten defensive player, might be the Naismith, National Defensive Player of the Year this season. But Akpara has, some of that to his own game. He is very good, and it's why this is a team that in Ohio State that generates a lot of blocked shots, and it's something that Wisconsin, may or may not be able to keep up with. But if you're going to get shots blocked, there are other ways that you need to make sure that you're going to take care of the basketball. There's other things that this Wisconsin team needs to do to keep up, and other things this Wisconsin team kind of needs to fall their way in this one. And we're going to talk about all of those things right after we tell you about our friends over at TickPick. Because if you are headed to this Wisconsin basketball game tonight, which you should, I'm going to be there. Let me know that you're going to be there. Come say hi. I would love to chat. I'll be there very early for Badger Notes. But if you're going to get there by buying tickets on TickPick. Because TickPick, the best thing about it is that you're going to pay the lowest price for tickets compared to anywhere else that you could buy them for this game, because you're never going to pay service or delivery fees on TickPick. The price you see is the price you are going to get. So download the TickPick app, because you can get into this game tonight for $14 on the TickPick app. And it doesn't take me, moving into checkout to see exactly what I'm going to get. I'm able to go on the app. I'm able to get a view of my seat from the app, which is incredible. It gives me so much comfort knowing I know what the view from my seat is going to be like when I'm buying tickets, especially when I'm going to an arena that I've never been to before. You all know I travel a lot. I travel to different arenas a lot, and it's nice having TickPick on my side so that I can see the view from my seat before I even buy the tickets. So I know I'm getting something that I'm going to like, and I'm going to get there at a price I like too. And let me help you get there at a price you'll like even more by saving you $10 on your first order by clicking the link in my podcast description, clicking the link in the YouTube description, using the link that's on your screen now. That is TickPick, TickPick. Click my link, save $10 on your first order, and never pay service or delivery fees for concerts, comedy shows, sporting events ever again. All right, coming up this week on the show, we are going to recap this Wisconsin Badgers and Ohio State Buckeyes matchup tonight. We'll have that in your feed tomorrow morning. I'll get that recorded from the Kohl Center tonight before I leave. And then on Thursday, we are going to have an excellent women's hockey check-in pod that we're going to start doing weekly here for the Wisconsin Badgers women's hockey team as they are marching down on their quest for another national title. A team that is looking really good, has a big series against Minnesota this weekend. You know, I talk about on that show that I just recorded a little bit earlier yesterday about why I think that might be the best rivalry in all of sports. And I know if I might be out on a little bit of a limb for that one, but I really like it. One of my favorite things every year is looking forward to that Wisconsin-Minnesota matchup at LeBron Arena, and we'll break that all down. Wisconsin's quest for a national title with Noah Clark of 1070 the game. And on Thursday, we'll preview Wisconsin-Iowa as the Badgers travel to Carver Hawkeye Arena on Saturday. We're going to preview that game for you on Friday and then recap that game on Saturday. We'll have that in your feed shortly after that game ends Saturday afternoon. Before we get to Iowa, we need to finish talking about this game against Ohio State. And one of the biggest things Wisconsin needs to do to get back on track here, to win its first game in 5 outings, is take care of the basketball. Wisconsin has been impressive at taking care of the basketball, not turning the ball over throughout much of this season. They boast a turnover percentage that is the 58th best in the country. Well, it was a lot better before this, previous stretch. It was a stretch where Wisconsin had been averaging only 9.8 turnovers per game. And then you watch the Rutgers game where Wisconsin turned the ball over 11 times in the first half. Wisconsin turned the ball over 12 times overall in that game. Wisconsin had turned the ball over 12 or more times in 3 of its last 4 games, including 16 turnovers in the Nebraska game. And the one time Wisconsin hadn't turned the ball over 12 or more times was at home against Purdue. For as well as Wisconsin had been keeping its head above water in the turnover department, forcing more turnovers than it had committed throughout the season, the Badgers were there on the road for quite some time, keeping up that impressive mark. And now they are very slightly, very, very, very slightly underwater in that department where no. Sorry, they are very slightly above water in that department on the road. No. Underwater. My bad. Wisconsin has turned the ball over 106 times on the road this season compared to 104 times that opponents have turned the ball over this season. Not great. Not great. Fortunately, like we said, Wisconsin has turned the ball over 12 or more times in 3 of its last 4 outings. The only time they didn't turn the ball over 12 times was the home game Wisconsin played against Purdue, where Wisconsin only turned the ball over 5 times. At home, Wisconsin has done a much better job of taking care of the ball as of late. Wisconsin can replicate that again That's going to be very, very, very big for this Wisconsin team as it tries to get back on the right track here. Chucky Hepburn, who has one of the best assist to turnover ratios in program history, he had only 3 assists to 2 turnovers at Rutgers. Against Michigan, he had 1 assist and 1 turnover. That, of course, not very great. He played excellent against Purdue in this department, although, I wish he would have maybe shot the ball just a little bit more, or at least connected on more of these shots, making one of only 6 shots from the field. He had 5 assists in that game, though, and didn't turn the ball over. Against Purdue, a 5 from 3, which, of course, we've talked about that performance quite a bit, but he had 3 assists to only 2 turnovers. On his career, Chucky Hepburn is much, 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 much better than that. So having a point guard who could take care of the ball, Chucky Hepburn needs to find that sweet spot of taking care of the ball, facilitating to others, and scoring for himself. And that's a hard thing for a point guard to do. And we've talked at length about how Chucky Hepburn is having a tough time finding that middle ground this season. If he can find that middle ground and get a little bit closer to it in this game, that's going to go very, very far for Wisconsin in doing something for this team. And if you're able to limit turnovers by Chucky Hepburn, by AJ Storr, who can be a little bit erratic at times, by Connor Esijan, who doesn't necessarily turn the ball over a ton, but can do it from time to time with his limited opportunities, you're going to get quite a bit further in this game. And this is an opportunity for you to do so, because Ohio State does not force teams into very many turnovers. They are 290th in turnover percentage forced. This is an opportunity to take care of the ball and get back to playing winning basketball for Wisconsin. One of the ways that this game could go off the rails, though, if it's not with turnovers, though, is some of this injury and personnel shenanigans that Wisconsin has had to deal with as of late. Of course, Kamari McGee is still out. Greg Gard told the media today that he will be out for 10 to 14 more days. That will bring Kamari McGee in. If it's that 10 or 14 day mark, it'll bring him into play at Indiana later this month. The other player who, of course, did not suit up for the game at Rutgers is John Blackwell. He was not 100% for the game at Michigan. And then he didn't play at all against Rutgers. John Blackwell did not participate in practice today, or yesterday, rather, on Monday. And it's very up in the air whether or not he's going to play in this game. Like I said, this is the breaking news that you're going to be waiting for to drop on game night, because whether or not he can go might say a lot about this team. So follow me on the website formerly known as Twitter at Kedrick Stumbris, and pay attention to our news as it breaks over on Badger Notes. You'll find our latest work over there linked in this podcast description for if John Blackwell is going to go, because that rotation gets short really, really quickly if John Blackwell is not playing. We talked about the loss of Kamari McGee going as far back as the Nebraska game, where Chucky Hepburn had to play 41 minutes in that game. It's too many minutes. And against Rutgers, when your defense was being put in a blender, Greg Gard sits Max Klesmit with 2 fouls. Then you have extended Isaac Lindsey minutes in the first half. Isaac Lindsey getting put in a blender. If you have no John Blackwell, if you have no Kamari McGee, those minutes at the point guard position in particular start to get real thin, real fast. And it becomes a problem. So if Wisconsin could get John Blackwell back in this one, it would go a long way for Wisconsin being able to win this game. But ultimately, as we wrap up here, this is a game that Wisconsin needs to get right with. This is not exactly the same team that you've seen earlier this season in Ohio State, and some of that is good, some of that is bad. This Ohio State team is certainly floundering in terms of its three-point defense. They haven't won a ton of games lately. They've looked pretty poor on the road, shooting far worse on the road than they have at home this season. But Wisconsin's not the same team either. And Roddy Gale Jr. is not the same not the same player that he was for Ohio State earlier in the season. He was in a big shooting slump. If Wisconsin could get something back to, at least closer to what it was before than what they played like the last couple of games, it's going to do Wisconsin a lot of wonders in this one. And it's going to take playing better 3-point defense, attacking the rim, and taking care of the ball. Just simple things while paying attention to these important matchups with Bruce Thornton and Roddy Gale Jr. and Jamison Battle. Who, man, you don't want to let Jamison Battle burn you too bad. That'd be bad just because he's a former Minnesota guy. You don't want to let that one happen. So that's going to do it for today's episode of the Scotty Six Pack Podcast. Thank you as always for listening, and stay tuned to myself, your host, Kedrick Stumbris, who you can find on the website formerly known as Twitter at Kedrick Stumbris, because I'll be at the Kohl Center tonight covering this game for Badger Notes. And you can find our up-to-the-minute coverage through Badger Notes in the podcast description, which I've said, I know, a number of times. But stay tuned. If you do not want to subscribe to Peacock, we'll get you the updates from that game as they come along by following me at Kedrick Stumbris. You can also follow the podcast at Scotty Sixpack for the latest updates in Wisconsin sports. While you're here on your podcast platform of choice, please leave a review, 5 stars, kind comments. It really does help the show, helps us to bring even better content to you 6 days a week, as we are doing here, and also doing it on YouTube, youtube.com/@Scotty Sixpack. Smash that subscribe button on YouTube, hit the like button, and hit that bell so you get notified whenever we're putting new shows in your feed. Until we talk to you all tomorrow, on Wisconsin.